multiple times. So, Katie, if you wouldn't mind letting people into the waiting room, no, letting people out of the waiting room into the room while I'm talking, then I'll do the same while you're talking. So, welcome everyone. So tonight's session is all about World Book Day. So whether this is your 30th World Book Day or your first World Book Day, I think people learn something from every session because everyone does things slightly differently. Katie won't say this probably about herself, so I will say it about her. I asked Katie to do this session because since I've joined Usborne almost 7 years ago, Katie has never not been in the top 10 school sellers. Even when we had 8,000 partners, she was still there every time. So she is a phenomenal school seller. And she's very, very slick if you ever have the pleasure of seeing her in action. So I know you guys will learn lots from her about how she runs her World Book Day events, how she manages doing so many at the same time, and yeah, how she makes them a success. So I will share my screen with you guys. So tonight's session, as we said, is all about World Book Day, and October, I would say, is the perfect time to start talking about World Book Day. Even though it's not until March, October is definitely a good time to start thinking about it, hence why we're doing it now. So if you have never heard of World Book Day before and you're not sure what it is, World Book Day, so slightly confusingly, there are two different World Book Days. There is World Book Day on the 23rd of April. So if you are not based in the UK, that is probably when your schools will be celebrating it. If you are based in the UK, World Book Day set up its own charity in the UK and decided to confuse everyone by doing World Book Day on the first Thursday of March every year. So if you're based in the UK, you are looking at the beginning of March for World Book Day. If you're not based in the UK, you are looking at the end of April for your World Book Day celebration. So we've tried to cover both in one presentation. So World Book Day has been around since 1995, and it's a worldwide celebration of books and reading that is celebrated in over 100 countries around the globe. I believe all the countries we work in do celebrate World Book Day. So no matter where you are from as a partner, your school's local communities will be celebrating it. So I found this quote from the World Book Day founder, Baroness Gail Rebrook, who said, "We wanted to do something to reposition reading, and our message is the same today as it was then, that reading is fun, relevant, accessible, exciting, and has the power to transform lives." You guys will definitely know this, but I think this is definitely something that is lacking in the world around us. And I think one of the most special things about your job is that you can change children's lives through reading. So you can persuade a child that is a completely reluctant reader that actually, if you find the right book, reading is really fun. You can persuade a child who is bored of reading Shakespeare at school that actually books can be super relevant to their lives. You can make books accessible by filling school libraries with books so children have access to a range of books, because if they're only ever offered one book to read and they don't like that book, then that's going to put them off reading. So you can change that. And of course, you can make it exciting because bluntly, no offense to any teachers who are watching this, I know many of you are teachers, but you are not their teacher talking. So it's always exciting when they get to listen to someone that is not their teacher talking. Those of you that don't know, I used to be a teacher, so I speak from experience. They switch off eventually, or maybe I was really boring. They like hearing new people, so that's where you guys come in. So as I said, if you are based in the UK, it is the first Thursday in March, which is quite late this year as a Thursday in March goes. So the 7th of March is your big day. But as Katie is going to share with you, don't fixate on just you can only do something on the 7th of March. You can milk World Book Day for all it is worth. The same as if you're outside the UK and it's the 23rd of April. Don't contain yourself to that one day. Like, really make the most of this opportunity. I would say it's like our version of Christmas. It's a book lover's Christmas is World Book Day. So milk it for all it's worth. We all know the supermarkets are hammering Christmas already. You can be the same with World Book Day. If you are based in the UK, All primary school students are given a £1 token that they can spend. If they are a nursery, they have to apply for it. If they're a secondary school, they have to apply for it. But if they have done that, then they will also have a £1 token that they can spend. My children's nursery give them out like sweets. We always get loads and loads of tokens to spend. You can accept these tokens if you are based in the UK, and they don't have to have been given to them at school. So like any child that gives you a token, you can take £1 off a book and sell them that book. So, celebrating World Book Day. The most obvious way to celebrate World Book Day, and the one that is going to help you sell the most books and reach the most children, is by selling to schools and nurseries and having an event to celebrate with them. And I would say World Book Day is the easiest way that you can start a relationship with a school or nursery, because they will be actively searching for World Book Day events. I was the World Book Day coordinator when I was a teacher, not through choice, I would be honest and say. And to be honest, if someone had told me they would organise World Book Day for me, then that would have saved me a lot of hassle. But I was a secondary school teacher, and yeah, we're not really prolific in secondary schools. So change that. Think of the poor secondary school teacher that has reluctantly been given this role to organise World Book Day. You could do it for them. So a teacher in every school will have been assigned the job to organise World Book Day, whether through choice or not, and you can make their lives easier. So schools will actively be looking for ways to celebrate it. And again, there's a lot of criticism about the fact it's quite commercialised. Everyone focuses on the fancy dress. You know a child's going to turn up as something for a book they've never read because it's a film. Everyone will be turning up as Elsa or like Superman. You're going to tell me it's a graphic novel, but people will turn up as characters based on films, not as characters based on books. Parents are forced to spend loads of money on a costume. No one wants that. You'd rather they spent the money on a book. So again, what you are offering is what schools are looking for. Like we said, and like Katie is going to say to you lots, you don't just have to restrict it to the one day. And Katie's going to go into this in much more detail. But please don't think you can only do one event on the 7th of March or the 23rd of April. You can really use this for all it's worth. I know some people think, oh, I can't work with schools because I can't be there during the day because I've got my children at home or I work full time. You can create any event to suit your own preference. And again, Katie will have loads more ideas for this, but you could do a sponsored read with a school without entering the school at all. You could set everything up virtually. You can do a community book pledge, reaching out to local businesses to sponsor books for the school. You don't have to physically go and do that. A book fair, I would say you do need to actually go into the school to do that one. That is your key selling point, that you do turn up and run it. An author event, you don't have to be there, but I know anyone will tell you that has run an author event, you want to be there because they're so amazing. But again, you could book an author on behalf of a school. You don't need to be there. You just need to order the books for the author to sign. A story time, I would suggest you probably do want to be there. You could leave a borrow box in a nursery. My kids' nursery don't have a borrow box, but they do have, they're really focusing on books and reading because it's obviously in the Ofsted criteria. So I know nurseries would be very happy for you to leave a borrow box there for parents to familiarise themselves with a range of books. So don't think that because you work full time or you have children at home that you can't work with a school, because you absolutely can. And also don't just limit yourself to schools. Everyone will be celebrating World Book Day or could celebrate World Book Day. So think about local toddler groups. Could you do a home party for the local parents in your area? Could you do a virtual World Book Day celebration to your customer group? Whatever it might be, don't think because you don't want to work for school or you can't work for school or whatever it might be that you can't do anything to celebrate World Book Day, because you 100% can, and you can 100% help people to spend their £1 vouchers. So we will be doing lots as a company to celebrate World Book Day. So this is a brief overview of the plans so far. This is the first anyone outside the planning group at Usborne has seen these plans. So every year we send posters to UK nurseries, primaries and secondary schools as part of the World Book Day UK effort. So if you're based in the UK and you get randomly contacted by a school, it's probably because they found you on the Find a Partner on the website. So do make sure you are active so you show up in that search. So the posters will either have a QR code to directly connect them with their local partner, or they will, in the case of the primary and secondary ones, have a call to action for teachers to sign up to an email series. Then once we've got those teachers signed up, we're going to keep repeatedly giving them messages about how they could have their World Book Day organised by one of you guys rather than them having to do it themselves. So we are actively pushing schools towards you. There is a competition for schools who book a World Book Day event with an Independent Usborne partner before Christmas. Will be put into a prize draw to win an event with Jenny Pearson, who I believe, Laura, I saw on this Zoom. So Laura, I think it was her school that won last year. So feel free to ask Laura at any point how that went, but use that as a hook. The only schools that will be able to win an author event with Jenny Pearson are the schools that are booking events with you guys. They cannot win it any other way. So very exciting. That hasn't been launched yet, but it is going to be launched this month. But just giving you advance notice that you'll be able to use that. If you've already got events booked in, you can enter those schools because it's pre-Christmas. So you can enter any schools that have already booked in with you. We will be doing a sponsored ad to reach schools that don't currently work with a partner. To try and get them to work with a partner. There will be a World Book Day webpage, which will be full of activities. So there'll be some World Book Day picks. Every year we pick select books. I think we're going to do an offer on those books. We usually do some kind of offer on the World Book Day books. We're just waiting for confirmation from Grant for that, but there should be some World Book Day special offers as well for you guys, and activities based on those books. There'll be videos from authors talking about their books, reading extracts from their books. So all nice added extras that you can offer to schools and share with schools. And marketing are planning a regular email comm strategy for you guys, so you'll get regular emails telling you everything you need to know about World Book Day, pointing you towards resources, and if you have any new partners that join your team, a lot of those emails will be recapping. So if you are a current partner, they might seem slightly repetitive, but we don't want new partners to not have all the information possible about World Book Day. Finally, before I pass over to Katie, just a reminder, everyone's favourite tools and downloads. There is a section called Working in Schools on tools and downloads. You can then click World Book Day, and there are videos from various Independent Usborne partners talking about World Book Day. Some of them are slightly dated now, so some of them mention lockdown. However, what the partners are saying is actually super useful. So there's ideas on building relationships, ideas on running events, lots of ideas of how to celebrate, things to remember that are well worth a watch. There's lots of resources for every type of event you might want to run, like posters, reading logs, certificates, etc. They're all beautifully designed and ready for you to use. And crucial, I think, is knowing the books, because the more you know about the books, the easier you will find to sell it. So I would say familiarize yourselves with our range of books. So take some time to watch previous project knowledge sessions to hear more about the books. I think it'll probably be the quickest, easiest way for you to learn about as many books as possible in a short space of time, particularly if you are new. There is a tab on Tools and Downloads called All Partner Training Videos. You can click Project Knowledge, and they've also got the business development ones like this, and just have a nice watch back. There's a video talking about nurseries done by Anne Croxford. There's one that Keeley did talking about schools. So there's lots and lots of information and ideas and support for you all on Tools and Downloads. So that was a very quick overview. And now I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to Katie, who is much more of an expert on all things World Book Day and working with schools.
Thank you. Yes, Lucy's asked me to talk to you. I keep thinking I'm not that big a school seller, but then I today went back over my stats so I could talk to you about my World Book Day, and I realised actually I did do quite a lot. I'm quite good at overcommitting myself because I hate saying no to people. So this World Book Day just gone, 2023, I actually ran 20 events with schools. And the only way I'm able to do that was because I spread them over the entire World Book Day season. So I don't think a World Book Day is just that one day. I use that as a connection to talk to schools, but we can redeem the tokens right from the middle of February when they arrive in the schools right up until the end of the end of April, sorry. So I obviously couldn't possibly do 20 events on one day. So I spread them out through starting sort of the middle of February, over February half term. I had RSRs running, and then right through book fairs back to back all through March and into April. So I actually delivered 11 book fairs and 9 RSRs over this year. And that resulted in £23,000 worth of sales volume. So that's your reason for doing schools, is the volumes you'll get from those events are huge compared to toddler groups and pop-ups and home parties and so on. So I would absolutely recommend doing it if you'd like to increase your earnings, which I'm sure is quite a big thing for lots of people. So my average book fair sales were 998, which is really gutting because it would be lovely to say it was over 1,000. And my average RSR volumes are 1,351. And they weren't all amazing. Some of them were duds. You know, we've all had bad events with anything, but overall they were amazing. I mean, I had one book fair that was almost 3,000, but then another one was 300. So it all evens itself out over the course of the season. I've been to almost every venue imaginable during my time with Usborne, but I'm really pleased that I'm now working with schools, and that's pretty much my entire business now, because the volumes and the return on my time is so much better. It's never too early to start thinking about World Book Day, because many schools do book a term in advance. So I think that's why we're running this Jenny Pearson initiative, to obviously encourage us to reach out and get in contact with schools. If you leave it until February, then they'll already have their plans made. So you really need to get in now. And even if they don't book you now, at least you've sown the seed. And then when they are ready to think about it, they'll come back to you. So it's really important to start making those connections. I actually did a little bit of a stat, and every child in the UK receives a World Book Day voucher from school, but they're also printed in magazines and on McDonald's cartons and all sorts of things. And there were 50 million tokens distributed in 2023, but only 2 million were redeemed. So there's a huge untapped market out there. Bear in mind, a lot of these children that are receiving a token have never been to a bookshop, and they come to a book fair and that's their first experience of actually looking at a huge range of books and being able to choose. So we really need to be helping those children to buy a book, because the parents are not taking them to the bookshops or the supermarkets to redeem that token. So we really do some good, and we're reaching the children that really need to be reached. So I'm sure all of our kids are spoiled and have bookshelves and bookshelves, but you'll be surprised how many families don't have books at home. So yeah, it's a really good thing to do. I know Lucy told me I wasn't allowed to say this, but I was really scared of working with schools. So I am not from a teaching background. I know there are many sellers with Usborne that are from a teaching background, but actually I think if you look at sort of the leaderboards of top sellers, it's a real mix of people that are from a teaching background and not a teaching background. So don't let that put you off. I literally didn't have a clue. I didn't understand phonics or anything, and my knowledge has evolved the longer I've done this and as my children have grown. And now like I say, I have these phenomenal school events. So you don't need to be a teacher to be able to work with schools at all. To be honest, our books are amazing. So it is just a case of getting the books in front of the children. You've obviously got the pester power by the fact you're there, and the teachers will support you. They're there and buzzing because they're excited. So yeah, you definitely can do it, even if you've got no experience whatsoever. But equally, as I said, I was really anxious to begin with. So I actually started off with nurseries, and that's a really nice sort of step in, especially if you've got younger children. Nurseries are much easier to get into than schools, because when you phone a nursery, it's typically the manager or the deputy manager that you'll speak to straight away. If you email a nursery, it will be reaching the manager. Whereas schools, you've got to break your way past the gatekeepers of the reception team, which are notoriously difficult to get through. So if you are nervous or don't know where to start, then nurseries are definitely a great place. And as you start working with nurseries, you'll see how easy it is, and it will perpetuate, and hopefully you can then move on to schools. Sorry, I'm losing my place now. I've got loads of notes, but they're really random. Yeah, so I was just saying about I wanted the confidence. I didn't have the confidence to approach schools in the first instance, but they really are a good way to increase your personal sales and unlock extra commissions as well. So I'm sure many of you are aware, if you hit £1,200 of personal sales in a month, you get an extra 2% bonus on your commission. So you can quite quickly recruit for even more money as well. So it's really worth doing. And I typically do that every month purely because I'm working with lots of schools and they're not very good at getting back to you with their free books a lot of the time. So I'm still putting through orders now from back in April where they finally told me what they actually want to order. So it can sort of spread it out through the year, which is really good if you're managing a team and trying to control your volumes. You can sort of plan your business a lot better and spread it out through the year. So the first thing to do is trying to find schools. As I said, nurseries are really easy. You can literally just pick up the phone and ring them or drop an email and introduce yourself and explain what you can offer. Schools is a lot harder because, as I said, the receptionists are trained to delete all the sales emails they get and say no on the phone. So you really need to try and get to the right person. At the school, it could be the librarian if they're a big enough school and they've got their own librarian, or there's normally a literacy lead, which is one of the teachers. Sometimes it's the head teacher that books it. Sometimes it's the school business manager. It really does vary school to school. So the best thing you can do is to start with everybody you know and think about their connections to schools, whether their kids are at school, whether they're on the PTA, governors, they're always looking to try and help the school raise money. Might be a teacher, a TA that works in the school. So literally talk to everybody you know and explain what we can offer and how amazing it is and that we do everything for them. And once schools have you, they'll definitely have you back because we do provide such a great service. I always have a sign, I've got one with me right now, but my stalls says teachers free books for your school, which you can get from Tools and Downloads. And that is a brilliant conversation starter. So everywhere I go, that sign's on my stall, predominantly placed. And I often get people coming over, oh, can you tell me about that? Oh, how do I get some free books? And it'll either be parents, teachers, PTA reps, and they're always asking how they can get the free books. So I then have the school's leaflet to give them and often some information as well. But I also try and get their details. So again, this is the prize draw slips are brilliant. So I can make sure I get their details so I can follow up once they've had a chance to read the pack. And it's a really good way in. I mean, I did an event last October and a teacher came up to me and said, oh, you know, how do we get the free books? And I said, oh, I can do a book fair, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, you need to speak to this person. I'll take a pack and I'll give it to her. And Monday morning, I got a phone call from this lady wanting to book a fair. And now I've got a termly book fair booked with that school, literally just because I have my sign up. So it really, really does work. I did briefly mention prize draw slips, but again, they're great. Every event, every toddler group you go to, getting those filled in, and there's a tick box to say you're interested in schools. So if you can get those filled in everywhere you go, and again, you can follow up and speak to those people, and they will be your way in past that gateway. Even if they're just a parent, they'll be like, oh yeah, we don't have a book fair at our school, or we do, and it's a really rubbish book fair with pointers and random bits of plastic toys. So they'll often put a good word in for you and help you make that contact into the school. And that's definitely the hardest bit. Losing my place again. Yes, so you can ask if they have regular book fairs to anybody you know. It's obviously easier to get a referral than it is cold calling, but equally cold calling can work as well. If you're really brave and you pick up the phone and you call the school receptionist and just ask, you know, do you have a book company or do you have an Usborne rep? Worst case scenario, they're going to say yes or no. You know, it's really not as scary as it sounds. And often they will ask you to send some information so they can pass it on to the right person. They won't tell you who it is, but they will pass it on, hopefully. So that's good. Yeah, one of the best ways as well is having a stall at fairs. So obviously we're heading towards Christmas now. So one of my ways into new schools is to book into their Christmas fair with the PTA. And then I'll ask the PTA, oh, are there any teachers I can speak to while I'm here? So I can tell them about what I offer with my school book fairs. And that's a really good way in because they can see the books. You can show them a few key titles I mean, we've got the All About series I always have to show teachers. The New World Kitchen one ticks lots of Ofsted boxes. So that's a really good conversation starter. And then I can, again, speak to the right person. Often when it's Christmas fairs, you've got all the key staff there. So it's a great time. So that then you're speaking to the literacy and they say, oh, let me grab the head and we can have a chat now. And they'll bring the head over. And the amount of times I've actually just there and then made a booking for a book fair because you've got all the decision makers in the right place and they're all happy and jolly at the Christmas fair. So it's a really good time to catch them when they're in a good mood. Also, if I'm doing grotto gifts or speaking to PTAs, again, I'll say, well, we could do book fairs and then you could get your grotto gifts for free. And they love that because obviously PTAs are trying to make money and save money. And again, they will then pass your details on to the school to get it booked in. Or I have actually booked book fairs directly with the PTA for some schools now, which I didn't realise was a thing. But some PTAs are so active in the schools that they will actually manage the whole relationship with me. So one of the schools that I've recently been working with, I'd started off doing a Christmas fair with them, which is how I sort of made the initial connection, which then followed up with a book fair in the playground because it was during COVID and I wasn't allowed in the school. But that went really well. And then subsequently, they've then gone on to do another book fair and a sponsored read. And that, again, started just from having a stall at a Christmas fair and making sweet talk to the PTA. So, yeah, always just share it with everybody and anyone about what you do. So once you've actually got into the school, the events themselves, I typically do book fairs and sponsored reads and listens, because that's what works for me. There are obviously lots of other ways we can help schools. But book fair wise, you can sell from stock or you can take orders. And we do everything for them. And that's what the teachers love. And that's why they want us back, because we make their life so easy. I mean, I actually did one this afternoon because I'm, again, really good at overcommitting myself. This afternoon I was on the playground and I arrived and they said, oh, do you need anything? I said, just a couple of tables. So they went and got me 4 tables and they're like, do you need anything else? And I was like, no, I'm done. You know, you can literally just leave me to it. And they couldn't believe it. And they just found it so pleasurable. I set up, they came out and put some music on, which I thought was really cool. So they had a big beatbox going and all the kids came out. It was absolutely lovely. The teachers just milling around, mingling with the parents. And they just said, this is just lovely, because normally they've got the big cases on wheels. They've got to set it up. They've got to take the money. They've got to have a float. Their kids arguing over pointers and toys and everything else. And this was just done. And it was 20 minutes of chaos. And then they said, oh, how did that go? And I said, oh, you've got over £100 to spend. So I think it wasn't bad for 20 minutes. And they were absolutely thrilled. But then they were looking and they said they would like some dictionaries for class sets. So I said, well, if you want to do that, then why not do a sponsored read? Because that will fund those and then it will top up today's sales to your 60% free books. So now they're going to run a sponsored read over October half term so that they can get the extra money to fund the class sets they want. And this was supposed to be a World Book Day book fair that didn't happen, and now it's turned into a book fair and an RSR. So it's really worth keeping those relationships going. You can do a book fair anywhere. That's the other thing. A lot of schools say we haven't got space, so we've got after school clubs in the hall. I have done book fairs in the craziest of places. Obviously today I was in the playground hoping it wouldn't rain, but I've done them in classrooms, in the library, in reception, in corridors. I've even done one in the school kitchen once, which was a bit random, but it worked. So think outside the box. Parents' evenings are good as well, because all the parents are there and they can reward the children with a book for good behaviour or good work, or there might be something that's come up that they need some help with, which we've got the resources for, or it might be that the children are there and need some entertaining. So it's a really nice way to do it, and you've got the time to chat to parents one-on-one at parents' evening because they're all sort of milling around waiting for appointments. And often you could do that in the spring term again, aside from World Book Day. So that's another good one. There's lots of things we can do to tweak World Book Day events. With you could ask them to dress up as sort of a normal World Book Day, but also a lot of my schools have done pajama days where they bring in books. And that's really nice if you want to incorporate some story time sessions, or if they're charging them a mufti fee of £1 for wearing non-uniform, you can use that money to put into the pot for buying books as well. So that's another way. Reading bingo, there's a sheet on tools and downloads. Some schools charge £1 a go to enter the reading bingo. And again, that could be money towards your sales as well. So there's so many different ways you can do it. I've also done a couple of book fairs for special schools as well, which has been really different. I actually did a school not long ago where the children were all nonverbal, and it was so humbling and lovely experience getting books. I mean, those children would never go into a normal shop, and they were given their own money to go to the shop and choose a book and buy the book from me. And that was really, really special. So again, we've got the opportunity to reach children that really wouldn't have these opportunities elsewhere. So think of every educational institution within a radius of you and how you could help them with the books. And say, I know there's a lot of organisers, but there's a lot more schools. I don't know if we've got any stats. Lucy's got any, but I know we're barely touching any of the schools.
I think it's 8% in total. Primaries, we have the biggest reach in. Secondaries is something like 2%. So the 8% is an average across all of them. So yeah, 2% of secondaries, and those kids need books too. Primaries, yeah, I think is about 8%, and nurseries, I think is about 4%. So really, really, really small. Special schools, like hardly any. I think we work with 20 a year, maybe that's it. Hospital schools, also a small percentage. So like kids need books, and you're the person that can provide them with those books.
Well, I can't personally, because I'm literally at capacity of schools, I think. I'm at the point of saying, no, I really can't help you. We need more people. So yes, I think that basically the message is that there are so many ways you can go with it, and it's not scary. I was just going to talk a little bit about how I actually run a book fair as well. I think, was that on the list of?
Yes, that'd be massively helpful. And then just to say, Katie is happy to answer any questions that anyone has at the end as well. So I know some people have kind of been typing as we go along, and people might have something they want to ask. I think goes without saying, no question is a stupid question. If you're thinking it, someone else probably is too. So yeah, once Katie's kind of finished sharing all her tips, ideas, then she's happy to answer everyone's questions as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I do a mix of selling from stock or taking orders. But I'd say if you're starting out, then taking orders is definitely the way to go, because you can just take one of each book. You don't have to worry about duplicates. And you can use your own kids' books. You can borrow some books from the library. You could go to the charity shop and buy some secondhand books, because it doesn't matter what condition they're in, because they're going to get poured and played with and looked at. So I would definitely recommend taking orders to begin with. But for some of my schools, I do sell from stock as well. On the day, I normally try and get set up about 1 o'clock. If it's a smallish school, if it's a bigger school, I'll go in the morning and spend the whole day with them, set everything up, and then let all the classes come, visit the book fair, and write a wish list. So I've got the chance to talk to each class, explain how it all works, and then they can go away and give the slips to their parents. If they can come back and buy or order from me, great. And if they can't, then they've got all my details, so they can still order following the fair. And that's a really good one to reach out to the PTA and the parent WhatsApp groups and get that message shared around, that they will increase their free books for the school if they place orders following the event as well. So the fact that we do everything, the teachers just love it. Chatting to the children, I've actually invested in a set of clipboards now for my fairs, because I got so stressed out with children leaning on the books to write their wish lists. So I've bought off Amazon a pack of 30 little mini A5 clipboards, so that when the children come, they each get a clipboard with a pencil, sorry, not a pen. I don't want pens in their books. A pencil, clipboard, and a little slip, and then they can fill it in and wander around, and they get so excited about being given a clipboard and a pencil. It's properly exciting. but you do have to count the pencils back in. But that works really well. And then I try and spend some time with the teachers to show them the books so that they can start thinking about the wish list, because I do find that is the hardest bit of my job, is to get the wish list out of the teachers. So as much as I can, I get them to fill those in and start writing their own wish list while the children are doing theirs. And I'm getting better at it. So that's really good. I predominantly take card payments. I will take cash, but I do try and encourage everyone to pay by card now, because I find that so much easier, because I can just zap and it obviously totals it up for me then and there. I haven't got to worry about cash. So that works really well. And then I give them a few days after the event, not long, to place orders. And I stress that obviously they need to get those in because there's children waiting for books, so that we can get that processed and back to them as soon as possible. And that's the bit I tend to get quite bad at when I'm doing the back-to-back fairs, is leaving enough time to actually process the order and get it delivered back, which is why I need to behave myself and not say any more yeses. So yeah, I think that's all the bits I had scribbled down. I've been jumping around all over the place for my notes.
So people are absolutely loving your mini clipboard tip. Some of the, I think most of these aren't questions that kind of people generally have been everyone as we've gone on. So does anyone have any questions about anything? Excellent. So Natasha has asked, do the kids take the book wish list home, and do you make a QR code on with a link to your site school for ordering?
So I send them to my site to browse, but not to buy at the moment. Obviously, hopefully with this new virtual events, that's all going to change. But historically, I asked them to look online and then email me the orders so that I could make sure it was allocated to their school. But with the onset of virtual school events, we should be able to give them the link and they order through that school virtual booking. So it should get easier moving forwards.
And do the kids take the book wish list home, Katie?
Absolutely. So that's the goal, is that every child goes home with my details and their top 3 books. I say 3, but often they will cover the whole sheet and the back with their wish list. So
next question from Mickey is, do you do repeat RSRs, RSLs with the same schools?
yes. So I always try, and once I've got a relationship with the school, I then try and do regular events for them, and say at least annually, but often termly or twice a year. So if I've done a book fair for World Book Day, I will then look to try and do another book fair in the autumn, or a sponsored read if I'm not doing it at the same time. So sometimes schools will go in, every time I get a book fair booking, I will try and tag a sponsored read onto it, but often they won't want to do them both at the same time. So then we'll do one in the spring and one in the autumn. I do find summer events harder, purely because they're so busy with all the end of term things and summer plays and sports days and SATs and things like that. They often don't want a book fair. Some schools do, but often I think they just haven't got the headspace or the time in the calendar to do it. So I do find the spring term and the autumn term are where I'm busiest. But yeah, everybody that did an RSR last March, I'm contacting to do again the following March. And yeah, most of them will rebook.
How many schools would you say you work with over a year, Katie?
That's a really good question. Well, I probably shouldn't say this to you, but I set myself a target this year for 50 school bookings for 50 years of Usborne. But I'm not quite there. So that's why I didn't want to say it out loud.
But there's still a few months left. And how many of those schools would you expect to work? Like, do you have any schools that you've been working with for years?
Yeah, my favourite school I spend World Book Day itself with every year. And I've been doing that since Tilly was a baby, so 10 years. And she'd come with me. Like, I was breastfeeding her in the corner in between classes. So yeah, that's a really nice school.
So I guess that's a really nice kind of stat for people that you've been working with the same school for 10 years and they keep coming back to you time and time again. So would you say that the majority of your schools are not first time schools? You've been working with them for a while?
It's a real mix, because I do get new ones all the time. And so I am constantly trying to get new schools, because there's some of them do drop off, or some of them aren't successful. It doesn't work for that school for whatever reason. So I am constantly evolving, but equally, I mean, I've got a school that I did 3 years ago for World Book Day. We did an RSR and a book fair, and they earned about 3.5 grand's worth of free books. And she booked me again straight away for the following year. I mean, they've literally got every book in the catalogue. But again, it was just as successful the second year, and they've just booked me again for next year. So I think even though they're getting a huge amount of money and they have all of the books, they want more, because then they're like, well, we can get a class set of dictionaries, then we'll get a class set of maths dictionaries, and we could do with some more Bibles, or the SEND team needs some books. So I think they can constantly refresh their resources. And another school I work with, the PTA share the money. So they take some of the money for PTA prizes, for the grotto gifts and things like that, and they split it 50-50, because the PTA sort of pushed the RSR. So they had some of the takings, and then the school library had the remainder. So I think they never run out of books, so they do want more.
And schools can
And
also choose to, yeah, you've got the gifting, schools can use their like the pupil premium funding to buy children books from you as well. So children actually are physically taking books home. So yeah, there's never a case when you're going to run out of books. There's lots of questions coming through now. Nicholas asked, this is back to the wish list, do they usually come in and pay at the end of school too?
It's a real mix, because some children will come in at the end, some will have after school clubs, or be going home with childminders or friends. So yeah, it's a mix. I'd say most of them do come in at the end of the day that are going to buy, but I do get orders for the next few days following the fair.
Anna's asked, do you get any pushback on the free books for schools offer? A few schools I've spoken with think it's too good to be true and question the free books for school offer, even though I have to hand out leaflet and explain it.
It does sound too good to be true, and they question how Usborne are making any money. But equally, as soon as you start showing them what they can earn, there's no reason why you wouldn't. And I think we are a transparent company. It's not like we're someone that people haven't heard of. They can go on the website and it's all there. So I think if they're unsure, ask them to go on the website, maybe look at some of the case studies of the schools that have been in the blog with free books. And if you've worked in any schools, share some real life examples. Whenever I work with schools, I try and get testimonials. They are busy. You don't always get them, even though they promise them, but just a line or two from a school saying how thrilled they were, and pictures of schools you've worked with. And, I just gave £800 of free books to this school. Doing those shout outs will help you.
There are blogs on the website as well, that you can use about school events that partners have had that you can utilize, particularly if you're new and you haven't worked with a school, so you can use those as case studies as well. And I should know the full Usborne motto, I don't, but one of the things that Usborne prides itself on is good charity, and it was one of Peter Usborne's kind of most founding principles of Usborne's. The reason the free books package is so generous is because it's important to the Usborne family to give back. And the easiest way they can give back to reach all children is through you guys and through schools. So that's why the package is so generous, is because the Usborne family do give a lot of money to charity and charitable causes. So that is
thing,
why.
Sorry, let's think of something else. The free books reaching those children that don't get a book. One of my schools in particular, she's really savvy and looks at the wish list of the children that she knows won't get the books, and then orders in extra of those for the school library. So, for example, last year, the boys all loved the 50 football skills, Shadow Chaser, Curse Breaker. And she knew those children wouldn't come to the fair, so she ordered 10 copies of each of those with the free books, and they went into the library and classrooms. So those children would get to read that book. And these are reluctant readers that have never been to a bookshop. Parents would not bring them to the book fair, but they were going to get that book to read. So it's really, really helpful and important.
And I think Katie's making a good point as well. Again, like they can buy whatever they want. They're not restricted. So if they want to buy loads of the same book, they can do. I remember at school everyone used to fight over the Guinness Book of Records. I'm hoping that wasn't just my school and that was a general thing, because we only had one copy in the library. So I think, yeah, it is like a good thing to point out to schools that they can get whatever they want of those books. A question has been asked by Anna. What are your top book recommendations for primary schools, please?
Wow. I think I take a bit of everything because every child is so different. So I always take every single fiction title and then I double up on the newest books and some of my bestsellers. So the Shadow Chasers and Curse Breakers, the Spectaculars I sell a lot of. So all my sort of favourites, I make sure I've got duplicate copies. Then I always take loads of build your own sticker books, loads of sticker dolly dressings, fingerprints, jigsaw puzzles, and then a good range of the see insides and look insides. But to be honest, everybody's different and it always amazes you what people buy. So a really big range is good.
If your team leader is in the business development program, I do a monthly sales stats roundup. So if you ask them to go along and watch it or watch it back, they will tell you what we sold the most of each month at the moment. Because of the system changeover, we do not currently have access to these school stats that we used to have access to, but that's being hooked back up again. So I'll be able to give you school specific ones, but ones that I know statistically that sell the best are basically what Katie mentioned. It's your adventure game books. So I would expect the new puzzle adventure to go well as well. That's the younger version of those. 50 football skills every time. The 100 Things to Know series sells really well. Fiction is particularly weighted towards schools. So it is your Jenny Pearson. So the Jenny Pearson books, the Serena Patel books sell really, really well. The one that Katie mentioned that I now can't remember the name of, the one that's like Harry Potter.
Spectaculars.
Yes, Spectaculars is a good one. Kick always sells really well because it's about football. So Kick, I would say, is a staple. And then for older primary, the Tamsin Winter books do well, and the Sarah Hacker Holt books, and then your PG Bell, Train to Impossible Places, teachers like Coghart. Remember, you can offer them the class sets as well. So I'd say, yeah, fiction, like Katie said, is your big one that we notice a particular spike around World Book Day. But yeah, 50 football skills. You just can't seem to beat it. And excitingly, spoiler for a book that is coming that I think will be as popular as 50 football skills is 100 Things to Know About Sport is coming. Although it's post World Book Day, which I said was not good timing, and you guys would want it pre World Book Day, but they're not hurrying it through. So 100 Things to Know About Sport, advance warning, is coming. And the other one that weirdly does well is anything to do with spies. Seem to sell well around World Book Day. Yeah. And like the Spies Handbook and the Spies seem to sell well statistically. You've had a question from Sam, which is, do RSRs work across all year groups at the same time?
Yes. Yeah, so we have a dedicated week. Often I do it over a half term because that's really good to keep that focus going over a holiday and try and encourage them to read at home. I think also there's a good chance that they'll be seeing grandparents over holidays. So it's quite a good way to tap into funding from outside their immediate family. So that does work well. And yeah, you do tend to get sort of the younger year groups are more supportive of some of these things. I think, you know, the parents of year 6 are probably past it and thinking their children aren't going to benefit as much. So I do try and do a reward for children that every child that takes part, I give them a free book. So that's where the schools will get the reading libraries, where you get the 50 books for £40 and then split those. So every child that takes part gets a free book. And then if they raise over a certain amount or read a certain number of minutes, they'll get another book. And that would be something more substantial, like a magic painting book or a maze book or something like that. Some schools choose a fiction book for each year group, but it's quite a good way to sort of push them. But you don't want to make it specifically on money because there might be some children that have taken part who don't raise a lot of money, but actually read the most. And we are about reading, not just about the fundraising side of it.
Katie also made a really good point earlier, which got brought up. So we had a secondary schools expert speak at our recent Leadership Academy, and she had talked about secondary schools and non-uniform days, and that being the kind of quickest, easiest way to raise money. So if you are working with a secondary school, they need books just as much as anyone else. Quite likely they will do the easiest option for World Book Day, which is a non-uniform day or fancy dress day. The children bring in £1. Most secondary schools have over 1,000 pupils. If everyone's doing that, that's a lot of money that they can spend on books with you guys, or spend on an author event and some books for every child to get a copy of the author's book. Like, it would quite easily add up doing something like that in a secondary school. She also suggested a bake sale at a secondary school, so looking for alternatives. If a school is more reluctant but they really want the books, think outside the box of what fundraising do they generally do, and can that money be put towards books instead, and remembering that effectively you are topping up their fundraising, so you are contributing to their sponsorship money or their community book pledge or whatever it might be. We've had a question of how do we cash the coupons in. So there will be a code to put in, or I think on the new system it's actually more sophisticated than that. I think you literally have to type in the number of tokens you have, and then that money automatically gets taken off your account as long as you have that number of books. So you can't redeem like 75 tokens against 63 books, for example. That has to match. There are random spot checks. So you should post your tokens in. I don't know if the office actually will want you to post them in this year. Someone will confirm that. It's not my decision on whether they want to post and count them up. But basically, you will get an email which will tell you the redemption period, how you redeem them, and whether you need to post in your tokens or whether you just have them to one side. And if someone from the office contacts you, you're not in trouble, but just post your tokens in. So yes, you will have an email confirming what you do, but essentially it's part of the order process. There'll be something you can fill in and it automatically takes the money off. That's a very nice comment from Mickey about and don't say you can only run an RSL. It's amazing. You're doing an event. There is no only about anything to do with schools. Anything you do is amazing, and great that you're going to push yourself to work with more schools. Yeah, Kerry, very fair. You guys are free. Again, does seem too good to be true, but technically you're not free because Usborne pay you effectively through your commission. So technically you're paid, just not by the school. Although you do need to sell some books to earn some money from Usborne, which you will do at a school book fair. So yeah, technically Usborne, if you want to use that line and they're confused or they're like, how is it free? It's not free because Usborne are technically paying you to do it. A question from Nicola: in your experience, which do you find more successful, selling from stock or taking orders?
I prefer selling from stock because it's a lot less admin involved. I take my books. So today I've done this, the sale I did today was completely from stock. So I've turned up, set everything up. They've bought the books, they've taken them home, and I'm done. I've just got to sort out the free books for the school. So, I mean, that's much easier admin wise. But selling from orders, obviously you've got the opportunity to make a lot more, especially with some bigger schools where you might not have enough stock for everybody and you haven't got enough duplicates and things. So it is a really hard question because they both work well in different ways. I mean, some of the bigger schools I work with, and I wouldn't get the sales I do if I sold from stock, because I wouldn't physically have enough stock. I don't think it fit in my car. So.
And I think it's probably important to note that you can tell schools how it should work because they don't know. So yeah, you can set up how you want to work with them, where you want to be, because they want it to be successful and they don't know. So you're not being pushy or difficult or awkward. You're just telling them how it will be most successful.
The thing is, if I'm selling from stock and I haven't got the books, then I can still order them for them. And I always stress that, you know, if they're upset because their child can't get the book because someone has bought it, then you can order it in. And if I'd done all orders, they would have all had to wait. So I kind of use that as an argument.
There's a question saying, my daughter didn't get a World Book Day token last year. Most other classes did. Does it always come through school?
yes, you get them from school. So obviously the school office have not handed out all the tokens in that instance, but you can get them normally from McDonald's, from lots of children's magazines. They're in lots of other random places as well.
Someone said a tip, I think last year as well, that McDonald's had so many tokens left. They were basically giving them away because they didn't know what to do with. So some people had contacted their local McDonald's after the period was over, because our redemption period is longer than most retailers. So you will be able to still accept World Book Day tokens after most retailers have stopped doing it. So it is worth speaking to your local McDonald's about whether they have spare tokens. Then you can offer those to any of your customers. Would they like an extra £1 off the books because you've got a token that they can redeem? Yeah, so that's a really nice point. So Carrie went to a school and she said they were buying every child a book from their budget, and now they've lots of freebies which they can spend as on books as rewards for good behaviour. There's a question from Lindsay. Do you go to the school over a couple of days when taking orders? I'm trying to work out the logistics. So the children view books, create a wish list, then take it home for parents to approve, then back the next day to pay an order. What's the logistics of taking orders?
So it depends on the size of the school as to how many days I run it over. Some schools I'm in and out in an afternoon, some with a day, some I might need 2 or 3 days. So it really does vary school to school. You've got to think you're probably going to want 20 minutes minimum per class. So think about how many classes you've got, and obviously allowing for lunch breaks and morning break and things like that.
And can you explain, Katie, what you do with each class when you're saying the 20 minutes, what you do in the 20 minutes?
So I try not to talk, because obviously all they want to do is look at the books. But I normally, if I can get them all sat down, I can then show them a few books I think they will like that are age appropriate, and I sort of direct them to the areas. These are the non-fiction books, these are the fiction books, this is the latest title. Oh look, here's a fingerprint book. I'm just show them a few key titles, and then I explain how to use the wish list, how they've got to respect the books, not do the stickers, not do the fingerprinting, not write on the books. So yeah, I turn into a teacher actually. But then they go off and write their wish lists. I make sure they've written their names on the wish list, because that's often a problem. And then they take those home. They can either bring the parents back at the end of the day to pay for the books and place the order, or the parents can email me with the order. But as I've said, now we've got this new system. I'm hoping I'm going to be giving them a QR code or a link so they can go straight to the website and order against their school. That's obviously where we're hoping to be by World Book Day, that's all up and running, and it'll make life so much easier, and I'm not actually then managing the orders myself.
There's another question saying, do you use the Usborne order form or make your own?
I've got my own, so it's got all my details on it, directing them to my website and explaining how it works. I try and use a generic one. Some schools like it to personalise to their school, but I try and have a generic one so it's just easy to photocopy and reuse for every school. And it just says, your child's been to the book fair today. These are their favourite books. If you'd like to buy them, you can do so here. And your school's going to hit 60% of all the sales today in free books of their choice. So you're doing some good.
And what would you say, because we're almost at time, so I have a question for all of you, but a question for Katie first is, what would you say to someone who it will be their first ever World Book Day? What are kind of 3 pieces of advice you would give them for their first ever World Book Day?
Don't be scared. Will be the first one, because it's really not that hard. It's just like going to do a normal stall. There's just more stalls and more people, and actually you're guaranteed the sales. So it really is fun, because you have got a room full of really excited children. It's noisy. I will say I do have to have a drink by the time I get home. But it really does go well, because the children are so excited. And the school typically won't have experienced a book fair before. And if they have, they've had to do it themselves. So anything you do is going to be good, because they haven't got anything to compare it to. And you will tweak and evolve your book fairs over time. So yeah, don't stress about it.
And is there anything you wish you knew now that you didn't know in your first few school events, or that you do really
The
differently
clipboard
now?
thing is definitely evolved, because I hated them leaning on the books, and that was really stressful. And no, I think the doing the wish list is really powerful, regardless of whether they're coming at the end of the day or not, because that means you've got your details into every single child's hand. So that's really important. And also the following up with the schools, and rebooking the events, because I've got so much better at that now, that I'm rebooking year on year. So I've, at the point where I'm delivering the books, I'm like, oh, would you be interested in doing this next or this next? And thinking ahead. So all of the schools that I did World Book Day this year, most of them have already rebooked the dates in my diary for next year. So I don't have to think about it. And again, sort of before the summer holidays, I was booking all my events for this autumn. And I still have booked more later on, but I think it's just that planning ahead, because it's made my life so much less stressful. I know exactly where my volumes are coming from. I know exactly which schools I'm working with next, and I can get ahead of myself with the paperwork and things like that, rather than doing it all last minute.
I think key points I took from Katie is you can obviously run it any way you want. Utilize your Christmas events as a way to get in, because once you're there, you will be able to physically meet the people if they can't avoid you. You're at the Christmas event and you can get those bookings in. My kids' school are like hounding people at the moment to have a stall at their school. So if anyone's near to Ettington Primary, they are in Warwickshire. They are actively looking for stall holders. But yeah, now is the time they seem to be hammering people for stalls. If you get in with the stalls, then you can get in with the teachers. You gave loads of tips about, again, doesn't matter which books you've got, there'll be something that they like. So probably don't stress too much about that. And I think the biggest thing is be obvious. Lots of people say that I don't know, their kid's school doesn't want to do anything, or they're not sure. Like, have you explicitly told people what you can offer, that you do it for them? Are you explicitly saying that they can book you again? Because Katie made it seem so simple with just, have you thought about this, and it will top up your order. But if she hadn't said it, they wouldn't have known that they could have an RSR to get the dictionaries for free. So I think never assume that they know exactly what you're talking about, or exactly what you can offer, or that they can book you again, or that they can even do something with you. Make sure you tell them exactly what it is you're doing, because they won't know otherwise.
Yeah, sorry, there's one more thing as well, is that when I'm dealing with the schools, you then get the referrals from them to other schools that they speak to, because they have these head teacher meetings and librarian meetings across the county, and also teachers move. So then I've had lots of schools where I've maintained a relationship with the school after my contact's moved on and there's a new contact, but then my old contact then gets back in touch at their new school wanting me to go and work with them. So all those relationships, once you start working with schools, it does start to feed itself.
And teachers are competitive, and schools like to copy each other. I learned that as a teacher. So if one school's done it, another school will want to do it, because they don't want to be seen that they're not doing something to enhance literacy at their school, when the school up the road is enhancing literacy at their school by having you. So I know there's a real mix of people on this call. I would love to know, one, how many is this your first World Book Day or not? Two, how many events have you got booked, or would you like to have booked? And three, if this isn't your first World Book Day, what is your tip for people watching? What is the one piece of advice you would give people, or one kind of quirky piece of advice, like Katie's clipboards? I feel like Amazon are going to do very well out of those clipboards now. So maybe a general tip, and maybe a more unusual thing, like the clipboard tip. So is it your first World Book Day or not? How many schools would you like to work with, or have you booked to work with? And yeah, if it's not your first World Book Day, what is a general kind of nice piece of advice? And do you have any rogue tips like Katie's clipboards? Usborne clipboard and merch, Michelle. I mean,
Oh my God, that would be great. Imagine.
and lovely to see loads of you that's your first World Book Days. So you have just ultimately planned your World Book Day by coming to this session. And I'm loving the goals for this. And hooray, it's lovely seeing everyone so positive and buzzing for their tips. So I'll let people kind of finish their tips. Actually, while people are adding that, there's one more question, Katie, before we finish off, which is, what can we put into our World Book Day pack?
So I normally give them a catalogue, the latest leaflets, the school leaflet, and then a covering letter about what I do and what I can offer. And that includes some testimonials. So it's got sort of paragraph about book fairs, about RSRs, about other bits, you know, community book pledges and author visits and things. And then I've got a sheet of testimonials from schools that I've worked with. Sort of and it says the size of the school, so how many pupils, and what I did, and then something from the teacher.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for commenting. Please keep writing your comments in, and can we give a massive round of applause, which I realise will largely be silent, for Katie, but she'll be able to see your clapping faces. So massive round of applause for Katie for an amazing, informative session. And yes, like, do get booking those events in, do feel confident, do watch this back if you need to, and just, yeah, talk to other people about what they've done. And Katie, if you're getting commission on clipboards.
No, I've probably missed the trick there, haven't I?
Yeah, it has. It's been a good evening for you. You should become an influencer. So thank you so much, Katie. And thank you to everyone for joining us this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.